Hey guys, my name is Taylor Brower, and today we are going to be covering how to build a UI for the project that we did last time where we had a list of games and their details. I'm going to explain to you how to create that UI using an Angular framework. So let's go ahead and dive in, and I will link the video to the API project down below in the description. Here's what our final product is going to look like. We have our list of games here in cards with the name and the year and then the description underneath it. And here we have our endpoints, localhost 4200/games. And when we click in a game, this goes into its details. We can see name, description, year, platform, all in its own card. And then up here in the URL, we have games and then the ID for the game that we are on. And of course we have a button to navigate back to the games list. So this is what we're going to build. We have our project up and running here. I just ran ng-new and then I gave it a name, game database-ui in this case. And here it is up and running. We've compiled successfully. If we could take a look at the package.json, here is where we can see all our versions and all our dependencies that we're using. These are just the default that came with Angular. We're using 7.2. If we go into our app component.html, we can see the HTML that it generates for us. We're going to be removing all this. And here is our starting TypeScript. We're going to be removing this too. So if we go into the browser and we go just to the root directory, localhost 4200, here we are. This is the start of our Angular app. Now let's start building out our components. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. I've created my component, and as you can see here, the app is running with GameWorks. So if we go into WebStorm here, we can see that we've placed our component inside the main app component.html, so it renders. Here's our game component. So I created a directory called game, and I gave it components in a views folder. Views are the page, and the components are the elements that are going to go inside the page. So here I started off with a page called game, and this is just the HTML. Right now it says games works, and here's the TypeScript. So now what our goal is we need to get the games data that's in our API, and we need to put it on this page. So let's work on that next. So here we filled out our game TypeScript. So what it does is when the page loads, we're going to call this game service that we created. We're going to subscribe to that service, which means we're going to wait for it to have a response from the server. And then we're going to put the successful response from that request, and we're going to just display it in console.log, which is printing it out inside the developer tools for us to see visually what the data looks like. And of course we have a little error catch here just in case there was a problem with the server, then that will also be displayed to our developer console as well. And as you can see, I put the service under core HTTP directory here. and that's pretty typical. It's just a way to better organize your services. And here I made a constant for our API's URL. It's the same thing that's in Postman here, and a constructor to inject our HTTP client, which is used to go out and fetch data to our server. And here's just a little method to actually get the data. It's returning an observable, which basically means it needs to wait for the server to get the information before it continues with the next task. And I'm just sending it as a GET request to this URL, since this is the URL we hit in Postman to get our data. So once I do that and I go in the browser, I'm going to refresh, and let's open up the console and look, and we have an error message. So why do we have an error message? Let's refresh again. Okay, yeah, we're having an error message. So why is that? Well, let's go ahead and let's check out what's happening on our API. So we go ahead and we open up our API, and here we see we don't have any error messages in our console. If we look, everything looks normal. Okay, but we clearly have an error here, and nothing's showing up in our UI. So what's going on? So if we look at the error message, it says that there is an XML HTTP request, and it says that it's been blocked by CORS. So CORS is I guess it's like a defense mechanism, you could think of it like that, where because we have our UI running on port 4200 and we have our API, which is running on port 8080, the API cannot accept requests from other ports. That is just a security feature. It prevents attackers from attacking that port. So we have to go in to our endpoints and our controllers, and we have to specifically tell it, hey, that port is safe, go ahead and let whatever through. So we do that by pasting this cross origin, and then we give it the port that we want it to access. So we're going to go ahead and restart the API server. Okay, and once that's started, we're going to go ahead and go back over here. We're going to refresh, and we have our 3 games in here, and we can dive into the data, and we can see the data right there. Now we're going to take this and we're going to put it on the page. Whew, okay, that was a lot. So let's check out what we did. This is our final product here. When we hover over the cards, we have a little hand, and this is what we want. We want a title, and followed by our release date and our description. So what we did is, I'll get to the styling in a second, but let's check out the TypeScript. So nothing changed here. Let's go to the HTML. So here, what we did is first we created a div to house our data, and we said that we want a for loop running through our games list, which, if you remember, it's over here. We're populating our games list with an array of our games, and so it's taking our array, it's spreading them out, and we just attach a little class here so that we have control over the styles in our CSS. And we're using this pcard and pheader. So what I did is I used a component from PrimeNG. I'll link the link down below in the description to their website, but they have a whole bunch of components for Angular, and we're just using the card component. There's a little bit of setup on PrimeNG, like I had to go into this angular.json and point my styles to the proprietary CSS that they have there, and they do a fantastic job of explaining that in the getting started section. So just be sure to check that out, and then be sure to check out the panel UI component that we're using here, or sorry, not panel, but card. And we're just using PrimeNG's header, and we're saying we want a name in bold because we want it to stand out. So here it is in bold. And then we don't want to put a lot of, I guess, we don't want to make the release year very big, right? So we just put like a little emphasis tag on it to make it italicized here. And then we have under our header, we have our description, and this is just flattening it out, game.description here, and rendering it out onto the page, and we have it here. So in order to have like the cursor with the hand, we just put in a little bit of styling here. So our text on our pcard is guaranteed to be black. Whenever we hover over it, we have a pointer, and we just added a little padding to our header here so that it doesn't like smash up against the side there. And then what this does is this puts a margin at the bottom of each of our cards except for the last one, and we give it 2 rem. 1 rem is 16 pixels. So, and that's the spacing in between here. And then the last card here does not have any spacing under it. So next, let's go ahead and let's start working on getting the details going for our games so that we can click into them and view the details on a separate page. So I'm going to stop here for this video and break it up into 2 parts. In the next part, we're going to talk about how to click on each one of these and view the details. We'll look at things like routing and building another component as well. So let's check that out in part 2.